Imagine sitting alone in the dark, not outside in the wilderness, but within your own mind. Shapes move at the edge of vision, old memories rise like ghosts, and dreams leak into waking life. For most of us, this would be unsettling, even frightening. But for Carl Gustav Jung, this inner wilderness was the frontier of human experience, the very place where healing, wisdom, and transformation could be found. Jung did not call himself a shaman, yet his lifelong exploration of the psyche echoes the journeys of shamans across cultures. He believed that the human mind contained not just personal memories but an entire living cosmos of symbols, archetypes, and energies that guide, test, and renew us. In today's world, the word shaman often conjures up images of tribal healers, ritual drumming, or vision quests. But what if shamanism isn't just a distant tradition locked in time? What if the modern shaman is not only a healer in feathers or a guide in the jungle, but also a therapist, artist, or seeker navigating the unseen depths of the human psyche? Jung's psychology gives us the map to reimagine this role for our time. His work shows how ancient wisdom lives within us, and how modern people can reclaim it through dreams, imagination, and a dialogue with the unconscious. This video is not about copying rituals from other cultures or dressing up spirituality in borrowed clothes. It is about using Jung's ideas to understand why shamanic patterns appear everywhere, in myths, in therapy, and in our own lives. We will walk step by step through Jung's key concepts, his encounters with the unconscious, his theory of archetypes, the shadow, dreams, synchronicity, and initiation, and see how they mirror the path of the shaman. Along the way, we will consider how these ideas can be applied today, not as dogma, but as tools for healing, creativity, and community. The modern shaman, guided by Jung, is not someone who escapes reality, but someone who helps us face it, transforming wounds into wisdom. 1. Jung's encounter with the unconscious. To understand why Jung's work resonates with the figure of the shaman, we must begin with his own inner journey. In the early 20th century, after a painful break with his mentor Sigmund Freud, Jung entered a period of personal crisis. He began experiencing visions, dreams, and waking fantasies so vivid that he feared he might be losing his mind. Instead of suppressing them, Jung chose to record and engage with them, an act of courage that mirrors the shaman's willingness to descend into altered states. These explorations became the foundation of what he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. The record of this descent is preserved in Jung's Red Book, a massive illuminated manuscript he filled with visionary dialogues, mandalas, and mythic encounters. In it, he met figures who spoke with authority, some frightening, others wise. He treated them not as hallucinations to be dismissed but as autonomous aspects of the psyche. This is strikingly similar to the way shamans across cultures engage with spirits, ancestors, or gods, not as mere figments of imagination, but as living presences that shape human life. For Jung, these encounters were not pathology but initiation. From this period, Jung developed his central idea of individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating unconscious contents into consciousness. Just as a shaman must descend into the underworld and return with healing, Jung believed each individual must face their own unconscious and bring back its wisdom. His personal ordeal became a template for psychological growth, and in doing so, he mapped a path that modern seekers could follow without leaving their own culture. 2. Archetypes as spirits. Jung's theory of archetypes is perhaps his most influential and misunderstood idea. He proposed that beneath our personal unconscious lies a deeper layer, the collective unconscious, filled with universal patterns of thought and behavior. These archetypes show up in myths, dreams, and cultural symbols across time and place. They are not literal beings, but they act as if they were alive. For Jung, they had agency, a kind of psychic reality that demanded respect. In shamanic traditions, spirits are seen as powerful forces that inhabit the natural and spiritual worlds. They guide, test, heal, or harm depending on how one relates to them. If we view Jung's archetypes through this lens, they function much like spirits: the mother, the trickster, the wise old man, the hero. These figures move through our dreams and shape our lives, often beyond our conscious control. The modern shaman, using Jung's framework, might see these archetypes as inner guides, not to be worshipped blindly but to be recognized and integrated. Consider, for example, the archetype of the shadow. It often appears in dreams as a dark figure, an enemy, or a frightening animal. A shaman might call this a spirit of illness or a hostile force. Jung would call it the repressed aspects of the self-demanding acknowledgement. In either case, the task is the same: to face the figure, learn from it, and transform the relationship. By reinterpreting archetypes as modern spirits, we gain a language that bridges psychology and spirituality without reducing one to the other. 3. The shadow and the wounded healer. One of Jung's most powerful contributions is his concept of the shadow, everything about ourselves that we deny, repress, or fear. Shamans, too, are often those who have endured illness, crisis, or madness and returned with healing power. The idea of the wounded healer is central to both traditions. The shadow is not just personal darkness, it is the entry point into depth. Jung believed that ignoring the shadow leads to projection. We see in others what we cannot face in ourselves. The shaman recognizes this as well, often diagnosing illnesses as misplaced energies or broken relationships with the unseen world. To heal, one must reconcile with the shadow, whether that means confronting repressed rage, grief, or unacknowledged potential. The modern shaman, working with Jung's tools, helps others recognize that their nightmares and inner conflicts are not curses to be exorcised but messages to be listened to. This process is painful, even dangerous. Both Jung and traditional shamans warned of being overwhelmed by the forces one confronts. That is why rituals, symbols, and therapeutic methods are necessary. They give form to chaos. For Jung, active imagination, dream analysis, and symbolic art functioned as protective rituals. For shamans, drumming, chanting, and ceremony did the same. In both cases, the healer becomes a guide through darkness, proving that wounds can become sources of wisdom. 4. Dreams, symbols, and active imagination. Dreams were central to Jung's psychology. He saw them not as random firings of the brain but as messages from the unconscious, laden with symbols that could guide personal growth. In many cultures, shamans are dream interpreters, navigating the symbolic language of visions to diagnose and heal. Jung's dream analysis revives this role in modern form, offering tools to decipher the imagery of the night. Active imagination, Jung's method of consciously dialoguing with inner figures, is perhaps the clearest example of a modern shamanic technique. Instead of passively observing dreams, he encouraged engaging with the images, speaking to them, asking questions, drawing them, even arguing with them. This mirrors shamanic journeys where practitioners interact with spirits in trance states. The difference is that Jung translated this into a practice accessible to people without ritual training, making the inner world available to anyone willing to pay attention. Symbols were for Jung the bridge between conscious and unconscious. A symbol was not just a sign but a living image that carried more meaning than could be explained rationally. Mandalas, for example, often emerged in his patients' dreams and drawings, representing the self, the center of wholeness. Shamans, too, use symbolic tools, drums, feathers, masks, that embody forces larger than themselves. The symbol is the doorway, the act of engaging with it is the journey. 5. Synchronicity and sacred meaning. Jung introduced the concept of synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by cause and effect. For example, thinking of an old friend just as they call, or dreaming of an animal that then appears the next day. For many, these are dismissed as chance, but Jung saw them as signs that psyche and world are not separate but intertwined. This idea resonates strongly with shamanic worldviews, where everything is interconnected and events have symbolic significance. The flight of a bird, the pattern of the stars, the sudden illness of a child, all can carry messages from the unseen. The modern shaman, informed by Jung, does not take synchronicity as magical proof but as an invitation to meaning. It reminds us that our lives are part of a greater pattern, and that paying attention can transform how we move through the world. Critics have accused Jung of mysticism for promoting synchronicity, but his point was subtle. He did not claim to prove supernatural forces but to acknowledge the lived reality of meaning. In a world often reduced to mechanics and statistics, synchronicity restores depth. For the modern shaman, this is crucial. Healing is not only about fixing problems but about restoring a sense of belonging to a meaningful cosmos. 6. The hero's journey and initiation. Joseph Campbell, inspired by Jung, described this hero's journey as a universal myth: departure, initiation, and return. This mirrors the shaman's path, where the healer must descend into the other world, endure trials, and bring back healing for the community. Jung saw this not just as myth but as the psychological process of individuation. Initiation is central. In many traditions, shamans are chosen through illness, near-death experiences, or visionary crises. Jung's own confrontation with the unconscious served this role in his life. He endured disorientation, voices, and visions, yet he returned with insights that shaped modern psychology. For individuals today, initiation may not come through fever or trance but through depression, loss, or radical change. The modern shaman recognizes these crises as potential thresholds of transformation rather than mere pathology. The return is equally important. A hero or shaman who does not bring their knowledge back to others has not completed the journey. For Jung, individuation was not selfish isolation but integration that benefits the community. The modern shaman, then, is not simply someone who explores the inner world but someone who translates that experience into service, through therapy, art, teaching, or acts of compassion. 7. Modern applications. Jung's framework allows shamanic wisdom to be reinterpreted for contemporary life. In therapy, his methods of dream work, active imagination, and shadow integration provide tools for deep healing. Many therapists today act as modern shamans, guiding patients through symbolic journeys, helping them recover lost parts of themselves and restoring wholeness. In creativity, artists often function as shamans without calling themselves such. Jung observed that creative individuals tap into archetypal imagery that speaks to collective experience. Whether through painting, film, or poetry, they bring back visions from the unconscious that resonate widely. The act of making art becomes a healing ritual for both creator and audience. Community healing is another application. Jung warned of the dangers of collective shadows, when whole societies project their fears onto others, leading to prejudice, war, or scapegoating. The modern shaman, informed by Jung, can act as a mediator, helping groups face their unconscious drives and integrate them. In this sense, social activism, dialogue, and cultural renewal can also be seen as shamanic tasks. 8. Pitfalls of pseudo-shamanism. With the rise of interest in Jungian shamanism, there are also dangers. One is superficial appropriation, taking rituals or symbols from indigenous cultures without understanding their context. Jung himself warned against literal imitation of foreign practices, urging seekers to find their own symbolic language rooted in their psyche and culture. Another pitfall is inflation, where individuals who encounter archetypal energies mistake themselves for divine figures. Jung described this as a common danger of engaging with the unconscious. People may identify with archetypes like the Messiah or the Prophet, leading to grandiosity rather than humility. The shaman's role is not to become a god but to serve the community. Finally, there is the risk of escapism. Some may turn to Jungian ideas or shamanic practices as a way to avoid ordinary responsibilities. True initiation, however, always returns the seeker to the world with a renewed sense of duty. The modern shaman guided by Jung must remain grounded, balancing inner exploration with practical life. 9. The future of the modern shaman. As technology accelerates and traditional religious structures weaken, many people feel spiritually unmoored. Jung's ideas offer a framework for navigating this uncertainty. The modern shaman may not drum by a fire but might hold therapy sessions, write books, create films, or build communities that reconnect people with meaning. Digital culture, paradoxically, has also created new dreamscapes. Social media, virtual reality, and AI generate collective symbols and myths at unprecedented speed. A Jungian lens can help us interpret these images, seeing them as expressions of archetypes in a new medium. The modern shaman may be someone who interprets these cultural dreams, helping us find orientation in the digital age. The future will demand not the replication of old forms but the reinvention of the shamanic role in ways that fit modern life. Jung's psychology ensures that this reinvention is not fantasy but grounded in a deep understanding of the human psyche. By recognizing that we carry the collective unconscious within us, we realize that the wisdom we seek is not out there but already alive in our imaginations. Conclusion: Jung's Guide for the Inner Journey. Carl Jung never claimed the title of shaman, yet his life and work mirror that path. He descended into visions, met inner guides, wrestled with darkness, and returned with insights that have healed countless lives. His theories of archetypes, the shadow, dreams, synchronicity, and individuation form a modern toolkit for engaging with the mysteries that shamans have always navigated. The modern shaman, guided by Jung, is not a relic of the past but a necessary figure for our time. Whether therapist, artist, or seeker, this role calls us to face our unconscious, integrate our shadow, and bring back meaning for ourselves and others. It is a path of courage, humility, and service. In a fragmented world hungry for depth, Jung offers us a reminder: the sacred is not only in distant rituals or exotic traditions but in our own dreams, our own wounds, and our own imagination. To walk the path of the modern shaman is to walk into ourselves, guided by Jung's enduring wisdom, and return ready to heal the world around us.